So, good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Rose, the editor of AM, and I'd like to welcome you to this AM Online webinar about digital retailing and how to make it work for you. I'll be chairing the webinar, and with me are today's presenters, Denise Chuddy and Therese Alleman from Contact at Once. And in a moment, they'll begin their presentation. But before they do, can I please remind you how you can get involved? You'll have joined us in listen-only mode. However, you should all have a dialog box, probably on the right-hand side of your screen, which you can type into. And we do encourage you to take part. After the presentation, we'll allow about 20 minutes or so of Q&A time with our presenters. So we would encourage you to type in your questions and comments or any challenges or points you wish to make while the webinar is live. So that's enough for me for now. Let me pass you over to Denise and Therese for the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. This is Denise Chuddy. Again, we're LivePerson's Automotive Division, Contact at Once. What we plan to talk about today, first we wanted to kickstart the conversation about how we see the industry evolving into the conversational era. So I'll spend a few minutes on that. And then the bulk of the presentation, we're going to talk about a study that we conducted to understand how car shoppers feel about digital retailing, the tools that are available to them, how they'd like to use them. And we did that study with Kevin Root and Associates, and Therese will walk you through a lot of the insights. And then we'll wrap it up into what we believe you can take away from this presentation and apply to your daily practices. So to start off, what I wanted to talk about first is I wanted to introduce this concept of the conversational era. So this quote you see here from our CEO sums it up really well, which, you know, the way that we're looking at the transition in digital is when we started out, we put a lot of information on like terabytes and terabytes, even, you know, in automotive, if you think about all the data and the pricing, the configuration information we give car shoppers. And what we did is we really put the burden on the car shopper or owner to go through, find the sites, sort, sift, select, winnow down their choices. When they weren't happy with one site, they'd hop to the next, right? And so what we're seeing is in today's world, we're actually seeing a very different type of shopping experience. And particularly as we work with companies in the e-commerce space as part of Live Person, we're seeing more and more people want, and I think we're all shoppers, we're all consumers, right? We all want to shop the way that we normally do, in a more conversational way, more dynamic, nonlinear, and get more help along the way. So what we're going to couch this entire presentation is how do we take all these great digital retailing tools we have and we help somebody value their trade-in, look for a new car, maybe find a service. How do we take all of that and how do we help the car shopper and owner in what is becoming this conversational era have a more satisfying experience and put less of the burden on them to go find and hunt and peck for information, but instead serve it up to them the moment they need it in a more satisfying way. So that's the kickstart of where our point of view is. The next slide here, what you're looking at on this page is a great example of how conversational commerce happens for a telco. So simply put, in this particular case, we've modified the carrier, we've anonymized it, but this is an actual example of how one at Live Person, one of our largest customers, uses the digital platform of mobile to be able to have a conversation. You can see here from the initial interception of this consumer, we're able to identify things about the car, or excuse me, the phone shopper here that helps us really truncate the process and serve up the information that this person needs. So in this case, David's a current customer. He's eligible for an upgrade. We quickly surface the options to David. He can control the user experience by clicking and scrolling on what he would like and actually buy within the actual transaction. Now, certainly buying a phone that's a few $100s is very different than buying a car. However, we do see that this conversational era will quickly impact the service phase and soon down payments. So again, this was a visualization for everyone to get you in the mind frame of when we talk about conversational commerce. How does that play out in a shopping experience? If you think about the genesis of where we've come, we first started with the web in 1995, particularly in automotive. I need to get online. So we all went to AOL and we got online. And then as the web evolved and we had websites evolve where the experience could be held at a dealership or an automaker, and then we transitioned to search and then into apps. So you think about 2018, it really is this fragmented conversational infrastructure now where you have everything from Snapchat to WhatsApp down to own messaging devices. It really has become a zero learning curve interface. So as we think about how we help all of you in automotive, we really think about all of those platforms and how do we make sure when somebody has a question about your brand or about your inventory wants service, how do we help you get in front of that car shopper or owner in the platform they choose, and again, the format that they're choosing, which is more conversational and less of the burden on the owner and the shopper to find the information, but rather ask the question and be served that information when they want it. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about voice automation as well with Alexa and Google Home devices. And we see those becoming a very important part as the sophistication level increases of those devices. We see that becoming an important part of car shopping and owning in this conversational era. So that brings us to the Root & Associates study that we did. So if we know where, we believe we know where consumers are going and their needs and the way that they want information, how do we look at the digital retailing tools available today and help car shoppers with the entire online process? I'll toss the ball to Therese right now to talk through the study, but I think the one thing to keep in mind throughout the entire study is I think we all know the tools are available. Now it's up to us to take these tools, use the insights for how car shoppers want the tools at the moment that they want them, and really make them relevant and an integral part of the process. So Therese, tell us a little bit about the Root and Associates study that we conducted.
Thanks, Denise. Good morning, everyone. So when we set out to do the Root study, we see all of these tools. We see the way the market is going. We see conversational commerce developing rapidly, but we also wanted to know the consumer's perspective. How do they buy, when they buy, how do they want to buy, and what are their general feelings about digital or online retailing and messaging with dealerships and manufacturers when they're in the process of buying or on the shopper journey. So we did a quantitative and qualitative study. The qualitative study involved going into homes of consumers and actually having them sit down in front of a laptop, their phone, and a couple of other devices and go through a shopping process. The quantitative study involved 1,000 consumers, about half of whom intend to buy in the next 6 months and about half who had just bought in the last 6 months. So we wanted to get attitudes and perceptions from both groups. And the reactions that we saw to digital retailing were very positive. When we talked to customers about, excuse me, when we talked to customers about whether they wanted to do some or even most of the buying process online, they were very positive about that. Almost 80% of the consumers in our study said that they would complete at least some of the buying process online if it was available to them. There are some people who are fine with taking, as we would see in anything, I think in human nature, some people who are fine taking the process almost all the way. Interestingly, almost everyone said that at some point they do like going to the dealership or connecting with the dealer to understand the test drive process and when they start actually comparing vehicles, and when they they want to connect with the dealer when they're that far down in the buying process. They said that being able to have a relationship with a retailer gives them a safe point, a safer feeling. And also, we thought it was interesting and kind of amusing that some of them said that they just really like to come in and bargain with you. So we looked at what consumers perceive to be, in our language around our company, we call them WIFMs, or what's in it for me. And so we wanted to ask consumers, what's in this for them? If we look at guided shopping, which is taking messaging and combining them with a person or with artificial intelligence to help a consumer along the buying path, how did consumers feel about that, and what did they think were the positives? And they told us several. And the reason why that they felt that these were so important is because, excuse me, we're going to look at a slide in just a second about pain points. These address a lot of the pain points that consumers say they have as they go through the buying process. I did have a couple of slides about the study. I think I told you most of that, but we really did look to measure perceptions of digital retailing, measure perceptions of guided shopping and messaging in online research, and to identify the communications modes that consumers like the most. So what we learned from them is that in both groups of the study, both the quantitative and the qualitative, that consumers voiced similar concerns. And it's really funny, if we look at studies across the industry, it's not just ours, we see the same results from studies that are done by companies like TrueCar and by Cox Automotive and their digital retailing group, that consumers are just frustrated in general with the buying process when it's hard for them to parse information online. They have difficulty finding things. When they find pricing or other information, it's inconsistent. They would like to be able to engage with someone and talk through and be nurtured through at least some of this buying process. So they were all, as a result, very favorable toward the product that we put before them to test, which was a combination of messaging and bots or human agents to help walk them through processes, including digital retailing processes when they get stuck. The pain points are not unknown to all of us in automotive and all of us who are consumers. Most of us have bought a car before, so as we flip to the other side and become consumers, I think we get a really good view of what it's like for our customers to be out there every day trying to buy a car. And they tell us that the people in the study said the same thing that we hear across the board. Pricing, inconsistent information, and just a huge amount of information online that's overwhelming and difficult to sort through. So not any real surprises there. Most of the consumers told us, though, that they do shop online and that they do at least half of their vehicle research online. So they are ripe for us to give them a way to help them make the shopping process more simple, more user-friendly, and help them get to information faster. As we all know today, especially when we're shopping in 5-minute increments or even 2-minute increments as we carry our phones along on the train, or as we go from event to event, and we're snatching little periods of time to do things, that it becomes really important that we help consumers find the information they're looking for quickly. Also, interestingly, several of our 86% of our consumers in the study said they now expect to do at least some part of the digital retailing process online. For instance, we asked them about trade evaluations, we asked about pricing and looking at incentives, about figuring out what the final price of the car would be, about scheduling test drives online, and they were very positive about all of those. They said that they would take advantage, either have taken advantage of some of that or would take advantage of some of it. They really liked the idea of having the live advisor, which again, the product that we were putting in front of them was a product that combines human agents with technologies to make sure that as the consumer is going down the shopping path, if they get stuck, they have a solution available to them. We've since evolved the solution even more to be, we want to make it proactive, not just passive. So we don't want to just sit on the sideline and wait for the consumer to get stuck and frustrated. Rather, we want to serve up or surface information to them through our platform that makes the shopping process much richer. 74%, almost 3/4, well, really 3/4 of people in the survey said that they would be more likely to fill out digital retailing forms if they had this type of guided shopping experience or live assistance. And this is an important stat, so I want you to keep 74% in your mind. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the millennials. And as you can imagine, everybody in the automotive business likes to think of how they'll market to millennials these days, because they are becoming quickly the largest buying population. So I will tell you, I'll give you a little sneak peek and say that millennials, and probably to no surprise to any of us, they are more likely to use online tools. They're more likely to use guided shopping. They're more likely to build a trust relationship with someone online. After all, they're digital natives. They have a strong preference for chat and text, and none of them, virtually none of them, said that they wanted to call and talk to anyone, especially in the beginning phases of the cycle. So the reason why I say keep that 74% in your mind, when consumers, and I'm going to read this because this is really important for everyone to understand. When consumers engage with digital retailing tools or online retailing tools, cars are sold faster and the experience is better. And that has been proven out by multiple studies that have been done by Cox Automotive and other companies that sell digital retailing solutions. When consumers, in the Cox Automotive study, when consumers engaged with digital retailing tools, on average, they bought a car 6 days faster, and they liked the experience better. So if 74% of consumers are telling us that they would and do want to engage in digital retailing or online retailing tools, and we know that online retailing tools speed up the buying process, it makes all kinds of sense that we would figure out ways to get tools online, to get inventory online, and to help consumers parse through this information quickly. So a lot of people have asked the question about how do consumers really like text. We know consumers love texting in their daily lives with their family and friends, but how do they feel about texting with businesses, and then in specific, automotive companies? And they had a favorable impression. They said text actually made them feel like it was a personal and a rapid response. They like the idea of text as a follow-up. Now, honestly, they're a little less proactive about having someone reach out to them without them starting the conversation. They'd like to be the one who starts the conversation, but if they start the conversation, then they feel like that text is a great way to communicate with dealerships. They like the distance that text offers. They like the fact that they can have what we call an asynchronous conversation. So I can start a conversation with you. I don't have to wait for you to get back to me. You know, I can send you my question. You can go do the research, and you can come back to me an hour or two later, and I'm fine with that. That feels okay to me, versus sitting on the phone and waiting while you go find out information. So the money question really for us was, in this study, was does this really make a difference? So does having a messaging solution with a guided shopping experience make a difference in what particular brand or dealership you would choose? And almost 2/3, well over half, told us that they would be more likely, and this is all things being equal, of course, they said they would be more likely to choose a dealer who offers this guided shopping experience. Similar numbers on the brand. They also said that there were a little over half said that they would actually choose a brand if all things were equal, you know, location, pricing, that they would choose a brand that offered them this high-touch, guided shopping experience over one that doesn't. So it really does make a difference. And the reason why it makes a difference is because almost all of them told us they like guided shopping. They said that they feel that it offers them advice without subjecting them to a sales pitch, and that they would be more likely to use more tools, stay on the site longer, engage more if they had a live advisor. We even had people tell us that they loved the idea of having a guided shopping experience. We did a pilot with this, as again, this was a product that we were testing. So we did a pilot with this, and we got some pretty impressive results. Over the first about 35 days of this pilot, we had over 1,000 conversations that we were measuring. We had a 70% interaction rate. We increased the digital retailing form completion, so more people filled out forms, so therefore people are stickier in the buying process. And again, we have seen from other studies that those people close faster. We increased the consumer interactions from measuring from the baseline of how many consumers were interacting with dealerships on these websites prior to, and then looking at what they did after. There was about a 20% increase in consumer interactions. We were able to start referring test drives to dealerships, And we even had some of our guided shoppers assist in the sale of cars. And I always tell this story when I talk about this. One of our guided shoppers, live advisors is what we call them, was so excited one day she actually got an email from one of the customers that she had been working with through the process with a photo of the customer beside her new car that she had bought, and she thanked the guided shopper for helping her through the process. Thank you so much. You were really helpful through the process. So our conclusions that we drew from the survey and that we want to pass along to you is that we expect to see the use of digital retail tools increase. So if you don't already have a plan for how you're going to do online retailing, this is a great opportunity to start investigating. And the more digital retailing tools you are able to offer, the more engagement you're going to make available, the more connections you're going to make available for your shoppers. Shoppers perceived guided shopping in a very positive light. For all the reasons that we talked about before. We do want to, not surprising, but the guided shopping fans, the people who loved it the most, skewed younger. So guided shopping is a great way really to attract and retain younger shoppers, as we said earlier, the coveted millennial. And we all know this, but it bears repeating. Consumers shop in many places. Search engines, Auto Trader UK, review sites, the manufacturer sites, the dealer sites, and the presence of a guided shopping experience across that entire network can build trust and relationships. You can be everywhere they are shopping and be available for them to answer questions when they need them. We're going to move into a couple of recommendations. And Denise will just, if you and I can just talk back and forth about this and make it a little interactive. Our first recommendation is that you provide some type of guided shopping and digital retailing assistance through a combination of technology and people. Denise, why do you think this is important?
Well, one of the things that stood out in the study to me was the fact that people are asking for help. And as an industry for the last few years, we have all boasted about this fact that people go to dozens of sites while they're researching for a car because there's, we thought it was because they were so involved in the process and a high consideration process. And one of the things that, I took away as an insight was maybe we have it wrong. Maybe there's so much data and information. The reason why car shoppers feel the need to go to 24 sites. I think the latest Google study said it was over 24 sites during the process is because they can't find exactly what they need for their personal needs. For example, when I shop for a car, and I know this is silly, but it's how I shop, I always look for vegan leather seats, right? So try finding that on a website. try figuring out who offers that. We actually were just working with an automaker on building a bot for them. And one of the top things that people, when they messaged to us, wanted to know was seating options. And we all took a step back and we said, well, let's try to do that consumer journey on the website on our own. Which of these cars offers 7 seats? And I'll tell you, on the automaker site, it took all of us 20 minutes to go figure and hunt and peck and find the information that told us which of the vehicles offered 7 seats. And so for us, this study really started to, again, illuminate to us that it's not that the information isn't there, it's just there's so much of it, and that each of us has a unique need, that offering this human help and even some bot assistance is just going to make us all have a better experience on the site that we chose in the beginning. So maybe we don't need to hop to 24 different sites. And no wonder that stat, we can truncate the process by 6 days. No wonder.
Exactly. It all starts to tie together when you think about it in the context of what consumers were telling us in this study. We felt strongly before we did the study. The study just only validated what we believe to be true, that guided shopping assistance is really important. And we as a company, our philosophy is, you hear a lot about artificial intelligence out there these days. It's the latest buzzword. Our philosophy and approach to artificial intelligence and bots has been to integrate bots into the overall process so that a bot is just another agent in the overall messaging infrastructure. And that way, bots can handle the questions that humans are comfortable with when they're speaking with a bot, but you also have an immediate path for the bot to gracefully fail or for the human agent to just take over the conversation if that seems to be what the consumer is looking for. And it's really interesting. We were talking about this around here yesterday. People are getting more and more accustomed to dealing with bots, but they don't necessarily always like the experience. And we see it in the transcripts as consumers talk to our live advisors. Some of them will say, "Are you real? Are you a bot, or am I talking to a human? You know, what's the square root of pi?" You know, they ask questions just to test to see if it's a human that they're speaking with. And in all cases here, it is a human that they're speaking with, but it's funny that people are already starting to get conditioned to wanting to know that the experience that they're going to have is an experience that's good for them. Bots serve a very useful purpose in this, but they're not the be-all end-all, as is really nothing in this. It takes a combination of all of it, and the live guides who can be true advocates for the consumer.
And my gut is a lot of you on the phone are nodding right now, right? And I spend a lot of time with dealers and automakers, and we all still know this still is a people business, right? So let's not forget that. Let's use the technology to, you know, amplify the experience, but I think we'd all agree there still is a very important human element to what we do in automotive.
One of the things that we always encourage our clients to do is to not let any one particular technology take over the day. For instance, you know, we always, as I said about AI, we always have buzzwords in the industry, right? You know, it was the website, as Denise showed in the slide in the beginning. It's the website, and then it's the next thing, and it's the next thing, and the next things are always going to keep coming. So our recommendation to you is that you build a conversational network that is based on an infrastructure, and we have one. Other people do too, not here to sell you specifically on our software, but that you build a network that allows you to plug and play as new technologies come on board. 3 years ago, we hadn't even thought of connecting consumers directly to a dealership through Google, and now it's an everyday practice. And some of our dealerships are seeing 30 to 40, is that number right, Denise?
Yes.
30 to 40 additional conversations, connections with consumers a month through Google. Facebook has just come on in the last couple of years, and Facebook Marketplace. So all of these, the thing that we know for sure is that these are going to continue to evolve and they're going to change, but you can create a network where you have a connection to all of your shoppers, no matter where they choose to shop. And that's what we recommend that you do, a conversational network.
If I just add something, we're going to release a blog post and an infographic about Google My Business and what people, when they click on that message button, what they want to know from your dealership. I was surprised. So we usually think of Google My Business as being high to mid funnel. Anytime somebody does a search, the real data is actually shocking that a fair number of people had already been on a dealer's website, and then they go and they Google the brand again, and they message to ask about a particular vehicle. They message to ask something very specific about the pricing that they saw. So I think back to, you know, Teresa's point is you really need to be everywhere in each of these points, because people are snacking across the internet and taking pieces of your brand and your inventory on their journey. And at that moment, when they want to reach out to you from their platform of choice, you just don't know what they're going to have on their mind and how specific they can get. So I think a lot of the old rules of, you know, upper funnel, mid funnel, low funnel just continue to get obliterated with the, you know, with the advance of more technical tools.
We believe, and I think that you'll hear consensus for most everyone on this, that you do need to use a conversational platform for management, because messaging is a scaled type of process. I mean, it used to be that you could just chat with one customer on your dealership site, and maybe all you needed was the chat itself. Now, conversations are complex, and consumers are having conversations with us from a lot of different places. So you want to be able to manage that effectively and also report on it and improve. I mean, this gives us the opportunity to use the data that comes from all of these conversations and improve our sales and marketing. And then we encourage you to create a continuous conversation. We all go by the old adage in sales and marketing that it's a lot easier to sell to an existing customer than it is to create a new customer. And one of the ways that we can continue to make sure that we are satisfying customers so that they come back to us time and time again is by simply building a relationship with them. Using messaging tools, especially async messaging like text, and in-app messaging like Facebook, you can create a conversation with a consumer that can go on and on forever until the consumer says, I don't want to have this conversation anymore. And if you're providing good, meaningful content to them, they're going to want to continue to have the conversation.
And this includes service, right? We talk a lot here about from the front end to the back end. How do you create a communication strategy for the whole dealership? So while a dealership might think of itself as different departments. If you are a car shop or an owner, you think of the dealership as one business entity to handle my shopping and my ownership needs. So we really advocate for really thinking through. Don't let the silos of your organization prohibit you from being able to service that customer throughout their entire life cycle. And no secret that this industry is making great strides in equity mining and trying to figure out when is somebody ready and how do we predetermine the incentive we can give them to get into a new car. And you can't do that unless you've owned that communication and that relationship throughout the longevity of the ownership cycle.
So just briefly to summarize, Contact at Once and LivePerson, we are Contact at Once. We are the automotive division of LivePerson Inc., which is the company that is the largest business to consumer, consumer to business messaging platform in the world. And our goal really is to help our customers and you build relationships with consumers from the very first moment that they're ready to make a connection. So with that, we will open it up for questions. If you have questions, you are free to ask them on the broadcast. If you want to reach out to us, if you want to get a copy of this study, you can go to that link at the bottom of the slide right now, and you'll be able to download a copy of the study. If you have questions, you can text us, or you can just go to contactatonce.com and chat or text with us from our desktop site or our mobile site, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And Jeremy, I'll turn it back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Denise and Therese. I've got a bunch of questions here for you. To start with, do consumers expect guided shopping across the OEM and dealer sites, or just at the dealer level? And if it is across both, then how can the experience be kind of smooth? How can it continue?
You want me to?
Sure.
So yes, we see it across both the manufacturer and the dealership experience, and the way we make that seamless is through technology. So we have examples of customers where we have conversations that start on the manufacturer site, and if they are giving signs or saying things that give us intent, where we have overt intent and know that customer is ready to buy, we can connect that customer via our platform to a dealership. We can even do we call it hot transfer. So if we are talking to someone on a manufacturer site and they say things like, I totaled my car yesterday, I wrecked my car, I have to have another one. We can transform that conversation that's a chat to an async message or to text, and connect the consumer with someone at the dealership at the very moment that that conversation is happening, even if it's after hours. So by using the technology, it goes back to what we were saying about having an infrastructure and how important that is. By using the technology infrastructure, you can put all of those pieces in place and scale the messaging to the manufacturer and to the dealership.
And I would add that whether you're a manufacturer or a dealer, if you don't get in the game and start learning about what people are expecting from you, right? This is like the best. Putting that chat text button on your site is the best way to understand what somebody's thinking and where they're frustrated in your process. So, at this point in the evolution of digital, it really is time to get in the game and start, opening up to get those conversations, no matter where you are in our industry, so you can understand where people get frustrated, help them along the process, and keep them longer on your site. I think we would all agree when we look at our analytics, there's not one of us on the phone who wouldn't want a lower bounce rate, greater time on site, more pages viewed, more time spent, all those metrics that really symbolize to us, that we're delivering a satisfactory experience. And, I think we've spent a lot of time in the industry trying to create the best website to give all that. And the reality is without human and bot intervention, we just can't deliver the promise of what this can be for a car shopper.
Okay, thank you. Another question. From your data and experience, are there peak times during the day that you see conversations happen the most? I know in the past we've heard in the UK about people typically browsing in the evening. Is that reflected in the data that you see? What?
It does mirror what we typically see for sure. Morning, for work, lunchtime, after dinner. Absolutely, we still see a lot of those patterns, right? That's when most people still have those pockets of time to have the capacity to go and do their research. We also will, though, provide overnight support. We're developing after-hour bots to help for those people at any time. And certainly there are peak times, but the way we're looking at the world is any time is a peak time, because it's a peak time for the person, right? We all know about moms in the middle of the night who are up with their kids, right? And see a lot of TV programming has tapped into that notion. And so we want to make sure that we're using both human and artificial intelligence, so that if your peak time is not my peak time, there's still somebody there or a solution to answer your question.
I'll use one of our customers as a perfect example here. We were looking at data from one of our customers recently, and we noticed that they have a contact center, and they pride themselves on being able to be very nurturing and right there whenever consumers want to speak with them. But we noticed that they were missing a fair number of messages, and we were certain, because we could see in the time frame, that it wasn't during the hours that the contact center was open, but it was rather after hours, in the evening and on weekends, and the number was growing. The interesting thing was that the number was growing, so they wanted to put in a system where they could roll over to our contact center, so that even late at night or on the weekends, somebody could get answers.
Okay, thank you. Another question here, related to some of the learnings from your study. I think it showed that consumers prefer chat over phone calls or texting with the dealerships. Why do you think that is?
It was very interesting in this study, because they told us that we also asked them about devices, right? And they told us that when they're shopping, they of course shop on mobile devices and on tablets, but when they're looking at build and price comparisons, interior colors, exterior colors, etc., they're usually on a desktop. And almost always when they're on a desktop or a laptop, they will chat, of course, versus text. They also did tell us that if we're getting a quick answer, they prefer, because we offer chat and text on the mobile experience as well, that they prefer at least initially to chat and ask the initial question. But if they get a response from the dealership in text, they're fine with that. The only thing that they were hesitant about with text was actually starting a text to ask a very general question early in the buying cycle. They're not quite willing that early on in the buying cycle to give up that very valuable text real estate to someone that they don't know. That's the relationship building. We see our live guides all the time, our live advisors. They are able to take a chat conversation and turn it into a text conversation, and there are technical terms for that, but they're able to transfer it to a text conversation. And the beauty about having a text conversation with a consumer is that conversation can live on forever, over a week or even a month. So having those text conversations are really important. Another thing that we tested during this that's really interesting is, at least in the United States, maybe in the UK, you do a much better job of answering the phone. In the United States, our retailers sometimes answering the phone and actually getting the person to the right person in the dealership is hard. And so we also tested a process where we could deflect a missed call to text, and then send the text to the customer who was trying to call, if they were calling from a mobile device, send them a text and say, "We're so sorry we missed your call. Would you like to text with us?" And in almost all cases, that was perceived in a very positive light from the consumer.
Okay, thank you. Another one here. How secure do you think the future of the current car manufacturer dealer networks are with the increase of digital retailing? Will digital take over?
Where we see right now, digital, less of taking over and more of, again, that guided shopping. So as Therese mentioned, in this study, we discovered that people still wanted to go to the dealership. So while there might be that, small percentage that do want the whole process online, that far and away the majority still wanted to head to the dealership to consummate the deal. So they want to do the valuation, right? They want to understand what their trade-in is worth. They want to start some of the finance process. But we saw, again, the majority still want to go to the dealership, which is why we advocate that this is still a people business. Let's use these tools to help. Let's get people a more satisfying experience. Once, and another thing is when you market and spend the money to get people to your website, keep them, right? Don't give them up because they can't find what they want. Let's really make your marketing firepower work for you once they're on your site, and again, deliver that full experience. And we know each one of you is thinking about digital retailing tools and investing in them. So you make those investments, just pull it through all the way, to, again, a satisfactory experience. But again, in summary, we didn't see any indication that all of these tools and all of the conversational opportunities that we're presenting means that people won't go to the dealership.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. You mentioned about investing in digital tools. That ties in with the last, two questions that kind of overlap. One is, what digital retailing tools would you recommend the most? The other one is, as dealers have to manage the experience across a whole host of platforms now, what would be your top tip to help them them meet customers' needs. So they kind of similar. Really.
Yeah, and I'm going to point to some data that we've been looking at. So we've been looking at a lot of transcripts, and we have a team here that takes all of the conversations. So we just served our 60 millionth conversations, right? So we have a lot of conversations we can call, and we've been sifting and sorting through a lot of that data lately. And first and foremost, it's still about, is this car still available? So that is 1 out of every 4 to 5 people. That's their top question, right? So there's this sense of, do I trust what I'm seeing online? So anything you can do, to call out, hey, call us or click here to see if this car's still available. Type of a call to action, I think, is interesting. And again, that's the majority. Second is finance. So people do want to start the finance process, and the questions range from, how much is the down payment to what's the latest terms. Certainly there's a lot of noise about interest rates in the states rising, so we see that in states in particular. A lot of questions about, am I credit worthy? Even people who have really good credit scores, we're seeing, are asking these questions. So more and more people, again, want that financing piece before they go to the dealership. And then I would say the third one would be valuation. What is my car worth now? What can I get from it? Those would be my top 3. And we're going to start releasing some data on around the top 15. And interestingly, when we, particularly on a manufacturer site, when we study the data, there are 15 top categories of asks that account for 85% of the conversation. So we definitely are all circling around a lot of the same things when we reach out to whether it's a dealer or an automaker.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap up here. Thank you. I'd like to say a thank you to Denise and Therese of Contacted Once for today's presentation, and I'm sure it's given our viewers and listeners plenty to think about. And viewers, if you wish to see us again, the webinar will be published on AM Online shortly, so you can catch up with it again at your own leisure. And obviously a huge thank you to the audience, for joining us today and taking an interest in this webinar. There will be more webinars coming from AM in the following months, so do keep an eye on AM Online and obviously your daily newsletters that you receive for details. So with that, thanks again to Denise and Therese, and thank you all for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.